First feature, why this one?
It's a good question. Portland had a lot to do with it. Obviously, the story, a lot of it's about Portland. I'm from Portland, so that was kind of a natural choice for a first feature. And I really wanted to do a story about a young person. I like writing about young people, and it's something I've been working on for a while. So, there you go.
At what point did it become like a real thing? It's one thing to finish a script and say, "Hey, I'm going to go make a movie," but then when did you know you were really going to do it?
Well, I finished the script, and Glenn, Glenn and I have been friends for years, and he asked me one day. He knew that I had directed and done some experimental stuff and some music video stuff, and he just asked me what else I wanted to do, and I showed him the script that I had just finished, and pretty much immediately he just latched onto it.
I read a lot of scripts as an actor, as a producer, and I'm always looking for what's out there. And having been doing television for a long time, I really did want to do a film. And I wanted to do something that wasn't a comedy. I mean, there's moments that are funny in the movie, but it's certainly not a comedy. I was looking for something different, but more importantly, I was looking for something that I was really passionate about. And it just so happened that my friend wrote the thing that I felt that way about. And independent of Michael, if I had read this script, I would have been like, how can I get involved in this? It just, for whatever reason, it spoke to me, and just to make sure I wasn't insane, I also had some other people read it, and I was like, am I crazy? Like, am I just biased because my friend wrote this? And I pretty much got the same feedback from everybody. Everybody felt something when they read this script. It takes you to a place. It really makes you feel like you felt when you were that, or at least it does for me. It makes me feel the way I felt when I was his age, and that's a very special time in everybody's life when everything is so heightened and so important. So I said, I want to make this movie, and Michael said, good, because I want to make a movie. Yeah. Michael said, okay,
let's make it.
Were there any red flags when you first went through the script, things that you thought would be particularly difficult to pull together?
I wasn't thinking that way at the time. It being I don't tend to think that way, and whether that's good or bad, I tend to just think like, well, this is good, I like this, let's make it work, is kind of more my attitude, which I think is ultimately a good thing. The movie is very different from the original script. The original script had actually even more fantastical elements to it. I think the more Michael thought about it, and the more Michael worked on the movie and really got more in touch with, like, okay, wow, we're actually going to make this movie. What movie do I really want to make? And he extracted everything from it to make it as tight and as much the story that he wanted to tell. And it actually became a much more grounded, much more real, much more it became less of a fairy tale and more of a true story about a kid's journey and a kid's awakening. With a few of those great elements that made it so fantastical in the beginning.
And then how is it bringing a cast on board here? Because you've got first-time director and you've got some pretty impressive people on this roster. So how do you make that happen? How do you pitch this to them?
Well, Cody was first, through Glenn and Glenn's manager, who also came on as a producer, who's now also my manager. We started getting in front of people. We got in front of Cody. We talked to a couple different actors Cody's age, but he just latched onto the script too. And it was, as soon as we met him, it was a done deal. We were just so impressed by him. So he was first on, and it just kind of started. It started from there. Super Crispy came on, and we read this one for Val, and she knocked it out of the park. And Glenn was able to help us with Danny. And,
It wasn't a difficult decision once we started the casting process. You're always looking for that person. You never want to kind of be like, well, that'll work. Okay, we can make that work. And there were a lot of good actors and actresses that came in and auditioned for the role, some more known than others. But it's great when somebody like Isabelle comes in. It's weird for somebody to talk about you when you're in the room, but when Isabelle came in, it was like, oh, okay, done. There's Val. Same thing with Evan when Evan came in, and there were a lot of really good actors that read for Evan, like really really impressive performances where I was like, oh, that guy would be great, that guy would be great, and then Evan came in and it was like, oh, oh, never mind. That's the guy. Like Evan is he's just magnetic, you know.
Yeah.
He's just really, really great. And Isabelle just, it impressed me so much. Like you and Evan and Cody, all of you guys, like it's when you're acting, it doesn't feel like you're acting at all. You just, they're so present. Like you guys are really listening, and you're so. I mean, it's such a cliched thing, but like being in the moment as an actor, like there's almost no pretense at all, no visible sign of performance, and yet you still get something that's better than just real life, which would be boring. And Isabelle just has that thing. Cody has that thing. Evan has that thing. And we'd seen Virginia Madsen and many things throughout the years, and she responded very strongly to the script as well, and so we were also very lucky to have her. She's terrific.
How is it bringing Val to screen? Because she is a layered character in and of herself, but one of the things I appreciated about a lot of the supporting players here is how much they build Cody's character while they're doing it. So how do you begin to wrap your head around doing both?
Well, I think Val and Cody's character are complete, like, opposites, is what we were saying. Is, kind of, she's more out of her shell socially, even though she's more kind of probably like Cody's character in the sense that she's in her own head, but at the same time, Cody's just his character James is just always in his own head and kind of weird, and I think that they kind of have this, they're both interested and intrigued by each other, and I think that she makes him kind of come out of his shell, and then he kind of brings out of her what she really feels, and so I think their relationship was just so beautiful and interesting, and then I read with Cody when I went to audition, and it was just one of those things where I think we just clicked,
It was cool. It's like watching
great.
two kids talk in a room. Like it wasn't like you guys were auditioning at all. It's so
Yeah.
weird.
And even the stuff on the bus, I think a lot of the stuff you guys used was, we didn't even
Yeah.
know they were filming. I think Cody and I were just hanging out and talking and making jokes, and he wanted to try on my ring, and that just ended up being, I remember
great.
seeing that when we were doing ADR, and I was just like, wait, you were filming then?
Yeah.
So
that
I think
stuff is great. That stuff is great. But
It's-
sorry, keep going.
Yeah, no, I think it's just one of those things where when you read with an actor versus reading with a casting director or something, you really feel those moments. And then being with Michael and talking to him about it, I just felt it in my gut that this was awesome.
It's obviously very deliberately James's story throughout. So I think all these other characters that are playing off of him, you're not getting necessarily traditional arcs from these other characters, and it's designed that way. They are really supposed to help facilitate him, grow. That's kind of how we built it. So it was very deliberate.
How is that for you as an actress? Do you have to kind of fill in some of the holes? Because we know why she is where she is when we meet her, but we don't know the details. Do you have to work that out yourself?
Yeah, I think you have to fill in the holes, but one of the things that's great and interesting and hard about being an actor is you have to fill in the holes and kind of know who the person is and prepare as much as you can, and then when you show up on set, you just have to ditch all of that and just kind of be there and be present. And if you read with someone, you get completely different reactions than what you could have possibly rehearsed. So I think that's the great part about my job, is that it's constantly surprising me. And so even though I knew who Val was, I would show up on set and something would come out of me that I didn't expect, and I would be like, okay, that felt right. So it's one of those things where when you in that moment and you're comfortable and you have a comfortable set and a great director to work with you, you just let everything kind of go and see where it takes you. And I think that
it really is jazz in that way. You know what I mean? You know the framework of the song, you know what key it's in, you know your instrument, all that kind of stuff. But then when you get there and you show up with the other guys, you're like, all right, I don't know exactly where we're gonna go with this. I know some points along the way where we're gonna hit, but how we get there exactly is going to be a matter of whatever I throw at you and whatever you throw at me.
Yeah, and the scene isn't about your character; it's about the other character. So I think it's always trying to bring the best out of the other person, and then you kind of cross your fingers and hope they do the same for you.
Mm-hmm.
How is it approaching making the story come from his perspective on a technical front? Are there any camera techniques that you use to ensure that the viewer was experiencing it through his head?
Every camera technique we used was very specific to, what he was going through at the time. If he's in his attic, we would, or upstairs in his room, we shot that a very specific way. very grounded. If he was outside, we shot that in a very specific way. If he was, if we were kind of with him as he was going through either, the actual wilderness outside or around the city, some of those shots are a little bit more composed and a little bit more flowing. So I guess that was how we, address that stuff. We just wanted to really represent what he was going through at the time visually with the camera language. So I think it changes a lot throughout the film. There's a lot of different feelings that we're conveying with just how the camera's moving and reacting to him and what he's seeing for the first time, and, versus him being in a place where he's maybe more comfortable and a little bit more stable. So.
And now to wrap up, what is it about this movie that's special, either to you or what you think could be special to someone that wants to check it out?
What I love about it is I feel like it really captures young people in a great way that isn't overdone or kind of, I don't know. You don't feel like young people are misunderstood. I feel like when I was watching it, I felt like I was kind of watching the world that I see around me at this age that I'm in. You kind of see people experiencing things in very extreme ways, 5 times worse or 5 times better because of the hormones added on top of it, and everything's new and exciting, and I think that it felt very real and very relevant to young people and growing up and kind of discovering who you are and what you can do to be better.
Yeah, and we probably all have slightly different, well, at least me and him are probably going to have slightly different interpretations of that because we're not teenagers anymore, which he is. But I think one of the things that I love and that you love is that it does, hopefully it does its job in making you familiar with the way that you felt and just how everything is so dramatic and the amperage is cranked up during that time. I think that makes it special. I think that, I hope that makes it special. There's also a sense of time. It feels, I think we really try to make it feel like kind of timeless. There's not cell phones. There's not, we wanted to make it feel like it could kind of be happening, maybe in the past, maybe in the future, maybe now, but
yeah, I kind of love that about the movie. You don't see you don't see kids on their cell phones and iPads and computers in the movie, which I love. I mean, I think that's it's like really cool. These kids that are hanging out in this, I keep wanting to call it the nest. That's what it used to be called in the script, the cave. Yeah. Are kids that are like really connecting with each other, and I think you feel that. But I think what Michael did such an amazing job of was creating a world where it felt so real and yet so heightened at the same time. That's a challenging thing to do, to make it feel real and grounded and heightened at the same time. And I think that's what it feels like to be a kid, and I think that's why this movie stands out from other coming of age movies, because it really puts you there. It makes me feel the way I felt when I was 15 years old.